Okay, so there are a few types of Mamiya Press rangefinders. This is Mamiya Press 23. It's one of the earliest models. It's not the earliest, but it's a fully functional early model. So the rangefinder can be adjusted here. There was a piece of black tape right here. I took it off, and we have the infinity here, two medium screws and a close screw for the full spectrum of movement. But in my case, the rangefinder was so off that I just needed to replace the infinity screw with a longer one and adjust that, and everything else fell into place. So in order to do that, you just need to undo the 4 screws holding the front plate. My front cover plate was 3D printed because the original was badly bent. I still have it somewhere. Underneath is a masking plate for the 150mm lens. So we just slide it here to change the field of view. Pretty primitive solution, because of course the rangefinder or viewfinder window does not have any frames inside, just like the later models. In order to open the whole thing, we need to remove these 2 screws and 2 screws on the sides. Then lift up, just like that. So it's pretty simple. I replaced the beam splitter here. I just dissolved the shellac with acetone on the old one, took off the old one, and glued in a new one in. It's still holding, it's fine, it's much brighter and clearer. The patch is much better. Here, accessible from the top, is a screw for vertical adjustment of the focusing patch on the rangefinder. And the best way to do it, first we can set the infinity via this screw on a distant object, like a building with a lot of vertical and horizontal lines, or the moon at night. And then we can set roughly the vertical adjustment with this screw. But then we should print a target, like MTF target, for testing lens resolution, and just check from a small distance of 1-2 meters if the patch is truly aligned vertically, because more often than not it will not be. We are not able to see that clearly at infinity, and those differences are well magnified at close distance. So in all of my cameras I adjusted it at close distance as well. So this is the first Mamiya press, one of the first ones. So this is vertical, and horizontal adjustment is right here. Another model is the Mamiya Super 23. One of the most popular. It's the same as Universal, with the difference that this moves out. You have the rear movements, and the connection is a bit different here. So to open up this, to adjust it, we need to remove 1, 2, 3 screws here, and the knob here comes off. Then we just lift it up, and this way, this is so much easier to adjust, by the way. So here, the first screw that's at an angle, this is the infinity adjustment, or the other way to say it is just the horizontal adjustment. The next screw is just a stop. We don't need to bother with that. And vertical adjustment is here. It's pretty obvious because here's the mirror, and we'll move the angle of the mirror. So same thing, we can mess with this angled screw at infinity, then go back to our target, or very close distant object. Check again if everything is in focus with a ground glass, and then adjust vertically with the mirror here, the screw. This is especially important if we want to take the whole assembly out to clean the rangefinder, which are 3 screws. One, there's another one here, 2, and third one is right here. So that allows us to clean the front surface of this prism here, disassemble the prism, glue it back together. Pretty simple, takes an hour to do. Whole thing basically takes an hour to clean and reassemble back. But then of course we'll have to readjust the horizontal and vertical alignment for sure, because we are messing up the factory alignment. And interestingly, the third model, this is another, right, Mamiya Super 23. Same stuff, exactly the same model, but it's much later because the serial number can tell us so. Same thing regarding disassembly of the top plate. But here, it's a bit different because this spring goes at an angle to the top. So I don't think this was wrongly assembled. It's just a different, slightly different mechanism. Maybe it's improved this way, but I have to say this, the patch seems smaller a little bit. Maybe that's subjective, but it's much easier to focus with this one for some reason, out of all the three rangefinders. The first Mamiya, the earliest model that I have, has the biggest patch and it's rectangular. These models have circular, smaller patch, but it's brighter and it's just, I don't know, somehow easier to adjust, easier to focus with it. And the best improvement in the Super 23 models is that there are bright lines in the viewfinder and they are parallax corrected. While on the early model, this is your parallax correction. So this is really primitive and a lot of times you will forget to correct it when you go at a close distance, just moving this up. Also, there are no lines whatsoever inside, and basically this plate, this hole, is your frame, is your bright frame. So it's hard to see where are the edges and it's hard to compose, making sure what's in frame and out of frame. It's much easier with the newer model. So the differences are obvious, right? This is much bigger, the new model, much more sophisticated. Regardless of that, if you're shooting landscapes, if you're doing infinity work, it doesn't really matter. If you're rarely using this handheld to take portraits, it doesn't matter. I use the ground glass most of the time. I do landscapes, so I just focus at infinity all the time. It doesn't really matter for me if I take any portraits from time to time. I just deal with whatever rangefinder I'm using. It's not that bad. Here's another shot comparing all three rangefinders of Mamiya Press system. So you can see how they advanced over time. It clearly is different from a pretty simple Mamiya Press through Super 23, and this is the early, I suppose, and this is an improved later model. Slightly different design, but the principle is the same. The dimensions of prisms are, or mirrors inside, are same. So under a layer of shellac, here are 4 set screws. This is my replacement screw that I took out. Took out the original, replaced this one to gain more adjustability for this. This is for horizontal adjustment on Mamiya Press, and this is infinity 66%, 33%, and this is the near close distance. So the whole thing moves. If you look at it this way, you will understand the motion. It goes from the, it's at infinity now, and then goes to the close distance. So, and here we have vertical adjustment screw, pretty simple. On the later model, obviously we cannot access it from the front. It's simpler, easier to do, definitely. Vertical adjustment here, and this one, this screw is horizontal adjustment. The whole thing moves. There is a cam behind it that moves as well. And if we cannot get it properly with these two screws, there is a golden screw right behind it. It's an eccentric screw. We can adjust it slightly if we cannot reach infinity, but I've never run into that problem. So that's pretty simple. So here horizontal, this is stop, don't mess with this one, mess with this one, horizontal, and this is vertical. Be mindful that if you press your screwdriver against it, the whole thing will slightly move. And then when you relieve the tension of your screwdriver, adjusting this, you have to actuate it. And the best thing is to just run the focus back and forth on your lens to make sure that it's set freely, moves freely. Because as I said, if you press this, you will push the whole thing there and it will not be true to a normal operation.